Today we move to Justinian's other great church, Hagia Sophia. For nearly 1,000 years, Hagia Sophia was the largest cathedral in the world. Remember how Sinan the Great spent his lifetime trying to equal it in the name of Allah? So, is this a basilican axial or longitudinal plan church, or is it a central plan church? Well, the answer is it's both, which is what made Hagia Sophia so transformative in the history of architecture. Justinian wanted to have it all, the huge rectangular spaces of the basilican church and the soaring domes of the central plan. So how did he do it? You may have noticed that once again we did not assign a Khan Academy video on this work because we've saved it for class. Please take notes on this video. Your workbook has prompts. Let me just recap a few points from the video. Remember that the College Board is interested in change over time and the way works are reinterpreted. So what's been added to the exterior of Hagia Sophia and why? Well, those slim, slender towers are minarets to call the Muslim faithful to prayer. And part of what makes visiting Hagia Sophia a rather surreal experience is this juxtaposition of Christian mosaics and Arab calligraphy. Hagia Sophia is currently a museum, although there is some pressure to restore its status as a mosque. Note that the current floor plan on the right includes a maksura, a minbar, and a mihrab. Do you remember those? The mihrab is the prayer niche facing toward Mecca, and the minbar is the pulpit. A maksura is the special space reserved for rulers. I couldn't find an image of Hagia Sophia's maksura. I tried, but here is the imperial door into the narthex, the door only the emperor could enter. One way in which Hagia Sophia did not change when it was transformed into a mosque is that it continued to showcase and reinforce imperial power or political power. When Sultan Mehmed the Conqueror entered Hagia Sophia for the first time in May of 1453, he walked through this door. He also, according to historical accounts, rubbed ashes on his head in humility and ordered that the great church be cleansed, renewed, and dedicated as a mosque. This gives you a closer look at the mosaic in the tympanum, or half circle above the imperial door. So how do we know it's not part of Justinian's original design? Well, the answer is this was a mosaic installed after the outbreak of iconoclasm, when the mosaics in the church were destroyed. These mosaics date back to the 9th or 10th century. We see Emperor Leo VI with a halo over his head, bowing in respect to Christ, who is seated on a jeweled throne. With his right hand, Christ is blessing the emperor, and his left hand is holding a book written, "Peace be with you, I am the light of the world," on it. This image is intended to show the timeless power of the emperor and his subjects blessed by Christ. Here is still another mosaic created after the iconoclastic battles of the 8th and 9th centuries, when again Hagia Sophia's earlier mosaics were destroyed. Christ Pantocrator means Christ Lord of Hosts, or ruler of the world, and it is probably the most common image of Christ in later Byzantine art. Almost every Byzantine church had some version of this image, which associated Christ with rulership and therefore, of course, with empire. So what are some other distinctly Byzantine features of this image? Well, we see the highly frontal pose, the long, thin nose, the almond-shaped eyes, the very heavy reliance on line to establish strong contours, and the stylized, flat, unmodeled features of the clothing and the body. Here, by contrast, is the Maciulle, also of Christ Pantocrator as ruler of the world. He is handing a martyr's crown to St. Vitali, while Bishop Eusebius is handing a model of the church to Christ. Note that this is the much younger Christ depicted in earlier Byzantine art. Still, in comparison with the Christ the Good Shepherd mosaic, which I believe I showed you before, this is still very much a Byzantine image. Note that the blue sky of the Good Shepherd mosaic has been replaced by the golden sky of the Byzantine mosaics. So what is the significance of this change, aside from evidence that Justinian had money to burn? Well, the Byzantine church placed, and indeed Orthodox churches still place, great emphasis on the spiritual, otherworldly nature of God and Christ. Byzantine art is more abstract, more symbolic, more stylized, and less naturalistic than early Christian art, or for that matter, later Gothic Christian art. It is also more imperial, which accounts in part for the lavish use of expensive materials. An iconostasis is a wall of icons and religious paintings that separates the nave from the sanctuary in a Byzantine church. So here are two examples of an iconostasis. The one on the left is from a Russian Orthodox church in Moscow, and the one on the right is from Hagia Sophia, reflecting again a post-iconoclasm remodeling. Note that in Orthodox liturgies, the priest is much more separated from the people. There is again that greater emphasis on Christ ruling over the world and to some extent standing outside the world, which is characteristic of Orthodox faith and practice and reinforced by architecture. Function and form unite again. We'll finish up today with a short podcast on the remaining Byzantine required works.